Welcome to The Explainer. We're really entering a brand new era of space travel. It's not just about survival anymore. It's about tourism, long-term stays, basically living up there. And that shift brings up some really interesting challenges, ones that have less to do with rocket science and a whole lot more to do with just being human. So if I asked you, what's the hardest part of living in space, what would you say? Your mind probably jumps to the launch, right? Or maybe the isolation, being so far from home. Or heck, just keeping all that high-tech machinery running. And yeah, for sure, those are all massive challenges. But what if I told you the answer, especially for future space tourists and settlers, is something way simpler? Something super familiar from our lives right here on Earth. And believe it or not, it might be even more complicated to solve. Yep, it's pouring a cold one. I'm not kidding. That simple thing we do to relax, to socialize, it turns into this huge scientific and engineering puzzle the second you take gravity out of the picture. And this is where a Japanese company called ASTRAX comes in. They're pioneering the solution, trying to create a complete space beer experience. But before we can really get what they're doing, we gotta understand the problem. I mean, what is it about space that makes this so hard? Let's get into it. All right, Section 1, the physics of zero-G drinks, or as I like to call it, why space hates your soda. See, down here on Earth, when you pop open a can of something bubbly, physics is totally on your side. It works perfectly. But up in space, well, physics turns into your worst enemy when it comes to a refreshing drink. So here's the deal. It all comes down to one word, buoyancy. On Earth, it's simple, right? The little CO2 bubbles in your drink are lighter than the liquid, so they float up to the top and pop. But in space, there's no gravity, so there's no up. The bubbles literally have nowhere to go. They just hang out, suspended right there in the drink. And that creates a huge problem. The second you open the can, the pressure drops and bubbles form everywhere. But instead of rising, they just expand. They merge together and boom, you get a violent eruption of foam that pushes all the liquid right out of the can. A Japanese TV personality actually tested this on a zero-G flight back in 2007. It was a total mess, a fountain of foam, completely undrinkable. Okay, and let's say you somehow managed to drink it. Well, your own body would have a problem. See, on Earth, gas rises to the top of your stomach, and you get a normal burp. In space, again, no up, so the gas and the liquid just stay all mixed up inside you. This leads to something called a wet burp, and yeah, it's exactly as gross as it sounds. So how in the world do you solve this? Well, let's look at how ASTRAX is approaching it. They're tackling every single part of this, the container, the pour, even just the feeling of having a normal drink. Now, their work didn't just appear out of nowhere, pun intended. They actually built on past experiments, like the zero-gravity cocktail project, which had already played around with ideas for space-friendly glasses. So they had this great foundation to start from as they developed their own unique prototypes. The big problem with any kind of open cup in space is something called surface tension. Basically, in zero-G, the liquid molecules would much rather stick to each other and to the walls of the glass than go anywhere else. So the beer literally clings to the inside of the mug instead of flowing into your mouth. So what did ASTRAX do? They realized, hey, if you can't beat the laws of physics, you gotta make them work for you. They decided to weaponize the very forces that were creating the problem in the first place. This is their first prototype. On the outside, it looks pretty much like a normal beer mug, but the inside, that's where the magic happens. It's lined with all these tiny straw-like channels, and the whole design is built to harness a cool physics principle called capillary action. You've actually seen capillary action before. It's what makes a paper towel suck up water. The super narrow channels between all those little straws inside the mug create this path of least resistance. It literally wicks the beer right up the sides and toward your mouth, so you can sip it just like you would on Earth. It feels natural. Then there's this one, their second prototype. It's this really cool, kind of strange-looking glass, right? The shape was actually inspired by a special coffee cup they use on the International Space Station. That sharp angle on the inside combined with the curve creates another one of those narrow channels. It uses that same capillary flow to guide the liquid exactly where you want it to go. But here's the thing, getting the tech right is only half the battle. For ASTRAX, it's not enough for the beer to just be drinkable. No, their ultimate goal is to get the perfect pour. In Japan, the ideal ratio is considered to be 7:3, beer to foam. So for them, this is about replicating the entire experience. And that focus on experience is so important. Because when you really get down to it, this whole project isn't just about beer. It's about something much bigger. What does it actually mean to be human when we start living in space? Think about it. As we move from just exploring space to actually living there, with tourism and settlements, survival isn't the only thing that matters anymore. We have to start thinking about comfort, about quality of life, about hospitality. We have to bring our culture with us. This is where ASTRAX has this amazing vision. The space izakaya. An izakaya in Japan is kind of like a casual pub where people go after work to grab a drink, have some food, and just connect with each other. It's a social hub. The idea is so central to Japanese culture that there's even a word for it, nomiacation. It's a mashup of the Japanese word for drinking and the word communication. And they want to bring that to space. And this really gets to the heart of why this matters so much. This isn't just some trivial first world problem. It's about psychological well-being in a really tough, isolated environment. It's about social bonding, helping crew members from all over the world connect. It's a way to keep a tether to our culture back on Earth. And maybe most importantly, it's a simple human ritual that lets you feel like a person again after a long, hard day of being an astronaut. So if something as simple as a toast requires this much incredible innovation, what does that say about our future in space? To me, it suggests a future where our technology isn't just about keeping us alive. It's about serving our comfort, our culture, and our spirit. It's about building a future where we don't just exist in space, but where we can actually live. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.